What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tinker Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Greg Dowd, and tonight I am joined by my good local buddy here, Frank Hark. He is currently had a diagnosis of Hodgkins lymphoma that he's dealing with right now. We've been connected through the Freedom Cell Network and got to know each other through that and have become good friends. And so, Frank, thank you so much for joining me tonight and telling everybody a little bit about your story and
Yeah,
what you're going through.
pleasure to be here. And I guess, man, it's been 4 years already, right? Didn't
Yeah,
we
man.
met in April 2020? Is that right?
Yeah,
Or
right.
2019?
Right as
Time
the
flies.
kind of as the lockdowns were grinding down a little bit, it seemed. I know they were still like taking temperature checks at the restaurant that we met at.
Right, right. Yeah.
So,
But yeah, so I can start off by letting you know what this. It's really been. I see it as an odyssey. This journey
yeah,
I've
well,
gone on.
Well, I mean, just tell everybody a little bit about like your story. Like you're a NASA engineer and
Yeah.
you
So
made it to Huntsville from New York and all that kind of stuff.
oh, sure. So, yeah, I was born in Flushing, Queens, and um, I grew up there. I still have a good group of friends I still keep in contact with, and I became an aerospace engineer. I've been spend the vast majority of my uh, career working for NASA. I moved down to Huntsville, Alabama, back in 2012, where I met my lovely wife. Just looking on to the left here. Uh, So, I've made Huntsville my home. I do really enjoy it, love it here. Now I live northern Alabama, just outside of Huntsville. We have 5 acres, and we try some homesteading stuff. My wife mainly does that. I'm just a big guy to lift heavy things.
Yeah,
Uh,
you were originally from the big city in New York, right? So,
yeah, I was a city boy. I look at my wife constantly and say, 5 acres. Like I wanted a condo,
yeah,
but I've always been a pretty big gun aficionado, and the way she talked me into this was she said, if we move outside the city limits in Alabama, you can shoot in your backyard. So
that's what sold you, huh?
that's what's it. That really was, and man, it was like 2 weeks later, right, or whatever, when we found this place, the house we have now. Which we're both that kind of crazy. We saw it was on the market. The people who had been living here passed away, and the daughter sold it at auction to an investor. And then 2 years later, the investor sold, and so we came out here, and the house was in an absolute wreck. I remember it was a Friday, and it was raining, and we could see that the house hasn't been lived in quite a while, and we kind of like walked. Did we illegally break in? I don't think we did. I can't remember, but we walked around the back, and we're like, oh my God, it has a barn. and so, yeah, we bought this place, and that was our decision. It was like, oh yeah, we can totally do this and save a bunch of money. And it doesn't. We did a bunch of work. We gutted the whole place. So that's my little advice to anybody who thinks that they're going to save money doing that. It's not going to work. Renovating the house. But we've really made it a home, and we love it here. And I also really enjoy my job. Like I said, is I'm working on the human landing system, the project to go back to the moon. Before that, I was working on the other part of the Artemis program called the Space Launch System. The degree in aerospace engineering, but I've been doing this kind of safety and mission assurance specialized field called probabilistic risk assessment. It's a lot of statistics, a lot of math, but I really love it. It's great, and I work. NASA's a great place to work, and I can't tell you anything about the alien technology or anything.
we can't discuss that.
Yeah, but yeah, so part of why we're talking now, I guess, is really on February 1st. I had an X-ray, and I really heard the words that everybody's dreading, where it was like the doctor told me right away. She said, "Okay, you have bronchitis," and it was February 1st of this year. Everybody at work had some kind of respiratory thing, right? And she gave me a nebulizer and gave an X-ray, and she goes, "Okay, you have bronchitis," and then she's like, "But your lymph nodes are inflamed," and she goes, "Now that it could absolutely be nothing. It could be literally they're inflamed because of the bronchitis," and then, but she's like, "It could be something really bad," and so she's like, she scheduled me for a CT scan, and the CT scan. So that was one impressive thing on not really having much experience with the traditional medical care system of how rapidly everything went, and which is when they schedule your tests quickly, something's up, because by that February 5th, that Monday, I called up the urgent care where I had gone for the X-ray, and they're like, "Yeah, it's something. You got to see I saw 3 specialists, and then it was a whirlwind. I think I got diagnosed by February 21st. So in the short 3 weeks, I saw the first doctor, X-ray, CT scan. They looked at the CT scan, decided the main tumor I had was non-operable. Then I had a biopsy, and then the biopsy results came back. And in that period, I was seeing the doctors, and the oncologist that I'm actually seeing right now, he was pretty convinced it was cancer. Of course, always the hope is that it's benign. It's wrapped around the aorta. I couldn't breathe deep. February was a really, really rough time.
Yeah, because it seemed to have come on really quickly, because you didn't seem to have any issues up until that point where you said you felt like you were having a hard time breathing.
Yeah, and maybe I can say in hindsight there were signs, and people might be interested in that. But I'll just continue to give you my story. So now the interesting thing was the very instant. So as an analyst who's been an analyst for 20, I have something called analysis paralysis. So my wife hates it. I have a very extensive library of many books, read and unread. But we also listen to a lot of podcasts.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the health guys we listen to. So we listen to Dr. Rhonda Patrick and Huberman and all of these guys. There's the one podcast, which I've mentioned on my YouTube channel, called The Mind Pump. It's, 4 or 5 meathead guys. I say that lovingly, by the way, before they come try to kick my ass. And they all very clearly, I think they all kind of separately say it, like if they ever got cancer, the first thing they would do is fast. So without knowing anything else, February 5th, I started a fast. And as I began losing, because I was 292 when I started. And so going through all of this, going through the doctors and finding out what I had, and that was the other thing I would say is, I had the potential for 4 different cancers, and I basically got the best one to get. The other, at least one of them would have been really bad, but it was exceptionally rare. And then the other 2 would be I'd be in a lot worse shape, quite honestly. I'm not terribly religious, but I do feel really blessed that I got the diagnosis that I got. And again, it was kind of it going into a long-term fast. And I actually basically fasted the entire month of February, all the way to March 4th. I did 34 days and I lost 44 pounds, essentially of all fat.
That is impressive that you were able to do that. Yeah.
I also been seeing for the last about 2 years a functional medicine practitioner who I'll shout out here in Huntsville, who I recommend people go see if you have any kind of chronic disease or if you're overweight. Integrative Healthcare of Huntsville, Brett Inabrit, who's at this point has become a friend. But I did never have a come to Jesus moment. Like I just knew as I was really going well, because 34 days is a long time, and I really was going to actually go 50. But in between that time of getting the diagnosis, and that was a big decision, was because my oncologist, there was no alternatives. It was you need to do chemo. I was doing as we went on, and we basically, and it was mainly my wife. I was kind of in a stunned state, just trying to stay on, keeping my attitude up and everything. But as I fasted, your mind clears, and I was getting, I was losing weight rapidly. So I was feeling a lot better, because I'll remember. So I'll tell this. I'm sorry if I'm a little disjointed, but I'm really going off the cuff. That Tuesday after the diagnosis, at 10 o'clock at night, after we had already tried to go to bed, something didn't feel right. And I had already purchased at that point. So I was checking my blood pressure. And I guess, I'm sorry for your listeners. The first indication was when we had that freeze. You remember the second week of January?
Yeah, pretty much everything iced over. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a chest pain, and you think, especially I'm just about 50 years old now, and I had started blood pressure medication this last year. You think chest pain, you always think the heart. I stupidly, and this is how dumb as I say, I'm the dumbest smart guy. We picked up a really heavy piece of furniture. This buffet that's in her house, and I remember that Sunday before the freeze. She was talking to the guy, because we bought it on Facebook Marketplace, a good place to get. So we got this piece of furniture, and the guy's like, "Oh, it's really heavy," and I'm like, it's a little old guy. It's not going to be. No, this dude was like 6'5". He was in his 60s, but he was a big guy, and it was a heavy piece of furniture. So I stupidly thought that I maybe pulled a muscle lifting this thing, even though we used straps. But that was, the second week in January, and I didn't get the X-ray until February 1st. So it was like 2 weeks. But I did get an at-home EKG, and I had a blood pressure monitor. So my blood pressure was a little elevated, but nothing terrible. And the EKG was coming out clear. But what happened the Tuesday after the Monday, where I was told, "Hey, you got something," and it really hadn't set in at that point. I checked my EKG after going to sleep at like 10 o'clock at night, and it said abnormal. And so we went to the emergency room, and there they checked me out. Again, that was actually pretty good. I went to the Crestwood Medical Center, which is a little bit of a further drive from my house. And the very first thing you do out where we are, is it better to call the ambulance, or do you drive there? Because it's about a 25-minute drive to the hospital. And it's okay. Well, will they get you there faster than they speed? And we unfortunately know now, because we've had some other issue, and someone did call an ambulance that we know, and the ambulance took 25 minutes to get there. So that means it was an hour since they called. Now, out where we are, like if I passed out and I was immobile, my wife is not dragging me to the car. I could probably put her in the car if she was passed out, and drive and get there faster. So one of those things to consider when you live out a little bit further out. But anyway, that was the thing. We found out that I was not having a heart attack, but that was a big concern. But and that's what I wanted to say, is in how bad a shape I was, because I lost weight. I was feeling better. I fasted for 34 days. And we started a lot of other alternative therapies. One of the things we learned about was called febendazole. And this is this is I used to call it dog food. And I do have to take that tonight. I've been kind of slacking off, but I can get into that. Because again, it's approved for human consumption, but if you get it through the FDA or whatever, it's 100 times the price. Meanwhile, you can get it at Tractor Supply.
This is not medical advice.
This is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm just some schmuck from Queens.
For anybody out there, this is Frank.
Yeah, 100%.
Learning journey and going on this journey.
Yeah, and like I said, that was the big decision.
Do your own research.
And that's where I'm at now. So we could kind of skip ahead. So last week, I decided to do chemo.
Right.
And that was the point, because I really wanted to complete 50 days. So now that's something we could talk about a little bit, is the long-term fasting.
Yeah. What was the net benefit from starting that fast? And did you see some, after your diagnosis, and then you had been doing this fast for 32 days? I know you guys are looking into a lot of different information, including this Dr. Thomas Siegfried's metabolic theory.
Kesha Winters, Nisha Winters. I apologize pronouncing her name wrong. So there's an alternative theory of cancer, and basically there's a couple of books, the Keto for Cancer, and then it's the Siegfried protocol. It's called the pressure pulse protocol, and the idea, it all goes in the Warburg effect of that sugar feeds cancer. And the part of that, this was discovered in the 1920s. And part of the reason that accepted medicine didn't pursue it is because it only worked 80% of the time, or at least that's again, this is the stuff I'm reading online. So what Thomas Siegfried discovered was that there's two mechanisms that cancer. So the idea for this metabolic theory of cancer, we all know the traditional. You have some gene issues, and then the cancer grows out of control. And, it just happens, because that's what my oncologist told me. I asked him, so how did this happen? And he said, well, the only thing I can tell you is it's not there you go. It's not. So that's like a textbook. Yeah. You can look up The Metabolic Approach to Cancer by Nisha Winters. That's actually, for anyone who wants more of a practical guide, I absolutely recommend people doing their own research. And that's more of a textbook, and it's expensive. But The Metabolic Approach to Cancer really goes more into the practical things of, hey, what things you can do. So the big thing that the fast helps with the cancer is so when you're in ketosis, the cancer grows slower. It's basically starving the cancer, but the cancer is also fed by glutamine, which is the most abundant amino acid in your body. Your body produces it. This pressure pulse method, you put pressure on the cancer by keeping your blood glucose low, and you really do that with the ketogenic diet. And it can be done in conjunction with chemo. Is you pulse certain pharmaceuticals. I don't remember which ones. We haven't actually pursued that. Where you would do that during you're doing the chemo. Now it has an other side benefit when you're in ketosis, is all your healthy cells are getting the energy they need. And part of this metabolic theory of cancer is that it's actually the the deficiency occurs because, one, you're metabolically, you have a broken metabolism. I'm sure you hear the term insulin sensitivity, and so that creates what they call, it's the seed versus the soil theory, where you've
Okay.
created a condition in your body that is pro for cancer cells growing. So, and I believe this is part of a lot of this overlaps with what is known as, accepted by the medical community, is you're constantly generating cancerous cells, but usually your immune system clears them away. And so when cancer takes root and gets large enough, your immune system no longer can handle it. Now, of course, what I've done, and this is where I'm at today, so maybe that's a good place we go. So I made the decision to do chemo. We did reach out to Humanizing Healthcare, which is one of the only places in the country, it's in Atlanta, that they do integrative oncology. So they're working with me while I'm getting the traditional standard of care, which is how it's referred to, and getting the chemotherapy. They're also administering mistletoe therapy and Christmas rose, which is another. Now, apparently, this therapy is very popular in Europe, but it's not as popular in the United States. And it's twofold, is both of those have anti-cancer properties, but they also have that they help with the side effects of chemo. So I went there for a day, and they showed me how to inject myself with those. So I'm doing this in conjunction with the standard of care. Now, here's the good news. So I was diagnosed as stage 4A, and basically, and again, you don't get a lot of time with your traditional oncologist. Like each conversation with him was 10 to 20 minutes long. And he told me, he's like, I'm spending more time than I have with you, because we actually asked a lot of questions. I don't know, maybe a lot of people just follow their doctor's advice immediately. So that was another good advice I got. So I did actually talk to a number of people, a lot of coworkers, not a lot, but people, I've been very open about my diagnosis and everything, and, hence putting my stuff on YouTube.
Is this the place that you're talking about, Humanizing Medicine, Integrative Care? Is this?
Yeah, are they in Atlanta or just outside Atlanta?
This is mistletoe cancer therapy.
Yep, that's them. Good, really good place. And I'm still, so they check your blood every 6 weeks. So I actually I have to set up an appointment once I get my latest blood results. And so that's what I'd like to just recap right now. That was a big decision. Now, the Hodgkins lymphoma, the real part of it is, now it is one of the top ones that they truly cure. You know how they say cure and the definitions get one. The interesting thing about Hodgkin's lymphoma is that it's actually the distribution of people who get it is bimodal. And so it's either people like under 30 or 35 and people over 55. And so actually to get it at my age is quite rare, but it's in a very aggressive form. But I think also because young people get it, they've actually been very successful by treating it with this traditional standard of care. And even Humanizing Healthcare, when I talked to my contact there, it was like, yeah, Hodgkin's lymphoma is very aggressive. You don't want to mess around, because I have a couple of friends, unfortunately, that I've made, coworkers that we've connected, that are also going through cancer, different cancers, and they're not getting, like, my doctor gave me my diagnosis on Thursday and said, I was like, I need to absorb this. And he's like, oh yeah, take the weekend, but by Monday decide, and then you're doing treatment, the next Thursday.
other
and I
coworkers
delayed it.
that worked like directly with you, where like you work out, like in the building that you work, other
Yeah,
coworkers?
yeah,
Really?
yeah. Well, one guy is remote, but that's the nature now. We have a distributed workforce. Um, yeah, and one guy I've known for going on 10 years. I had no idea either, but we talk occasionally. And he actually has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he completed his, but so that, and I'm by no means an expert on any of this. My understanding of the big difference between the two, well, there's probably multiple differences, but one of them is that Hodgkin's is very aggressive and non-Hodgkin's is it's slow growing.
It's like slow.
Yeah. So that was what my doctor told me is one is this was months, not years. And that it wasn't my cell phone and it wasn't tobacco. And I was like, part of, and that's how terrible I am, was I instantly wanted to have a cigarette.
Yeah.
That's actually gone away. But I was like, oh, okay, it wasn't cigarettes. So, yeah, and then that might actually be interesting. Is the thing we could discuss now is, so did I have signs? Were there things I could have known before I had trouble breathing in January and pain in my chest? And so if you, at one point, they tell you to just stay away from the internet. And I did for the first 2 weeks. Once we found out what it was, and my wife did not, she started researching stuff. She said, try this. I tried that. And
they tell you to stay away from the internet.
Yeah, because I can go into the statistics too, which are kind of BS. Although in my case, they're at least a good way. But so yeah, this is not so the other thing is that I actually have a second cancer. So I have papillary cancer, a tumor on my thyroid. But they're like, this is no problem. Don't worry about that. Like, it's the Hodgkins the Hodgkins is what can kill you. And they're like, you had that for years. I was like, really? And I have been taking thyroid medication. So that's part of one of the things which I mentioned earlier is I'm going to integrative healthcare. Is, I have blood tests every 3 months going back at least a year and a half, 2 years. And my inflammation has been very high that whole time. And I was working with him on it. Now, he's not a specialist in cancer. So was that a sign that I potentially had cancer? I think it was more a sign that I had a bad metabolism. And this has been a wake-up call to really, I needed to take care of that, because I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now. I probably have another 15, 20 pounds to lose. And that's what I wanted to go. That's another thing I wanted to say is part of the reason I didn't do the 50 days is once I decided I was going to do chemo, I knew this was going to be a real struggle. Like I was like, okay, let me refeed. Because I went through 34 days. I didn't eat solid food.
Yeah,
and I felt great. Like I was like, I'm going to do 50 days. And it's basically what we find out about. So that's another book I would recommend everybody check out, or actually all of his books, Jason Fung. And it's the diabetes code, the cancer code, and the obesity code. And basically all of those fix yourself up by long-term fasting. And when I say long-term fasting, I'm not talking about intermittent fasting is, you skip a meal, like a 24-hour fast or something like that. I'm talking you're going past 3 days of fasting. And that was part of the thing is I was already primed because I had read these books. I had completed in 2023 a couple of long-term 14-day plus fasts. I think my longest record before this was 21 days. So I was already prepped. I wouldn't recommend someone try, it depends on how terrible you're feeling, but like it's a struggle to get. It actually gets easier. It's an interesting thing. Once you can fully enter a fasted state after about 5 or 6 days. You kind of you reach, the brain fog is gone and hunger goes away, the ghrelin, the hunger hormone. So I was prepped, like I was mentally prepared. I already knew I could fast. And I was actually very successful in the first part of the year because I went from my typical set weight of 290 down to 260 in June. And then I just never went back. And that's actually what I think. I think my cancer started sometime between June and September. And so that's what I was going to say earlier. If you, at one point I Googled, what are the top 5 symptoms of Hodgkin's lymphoma? And 1, 2, 3, and 4, I never experienced. The only one I remember was like extreme kidney pain when you drink alcohol. And I was a pretty good drinker. Like I wasn't a daily drinker, but I would drink on weekends a pretty good amount of alcohol. And I never experienced any kind of kidney pain or anything. Or I just ignored it. I don't know. But the things I did that might have done it is one. So, and this is me lying to myself. I was going to CrossFit 3 to 5 days a week, and in September, like I didn't feel good. Like usually, even you don't feel good doing a CrossFit workout.
Yeah, I mean,
but
yeah,
once you're done,
are
you
hard.
kind of feel like that. You get that endorphin rush. That was gone. I was really close to telling my wife I'm done with CrossFit because I was like, this does not feel good anymore. What I also got is I got a rash came out on my legs. It was really red, irritated rash. And I had gotten something like that like 10 years ago, which I think was related to leaky gut. So I didn't think anything of it. I mentioned it to my doctor, gave me a cream that didn't help. It has since gone away. I think it actually went away while I was fasting. It was probably a month, 6 weeks ago. But apparently that's a sign of cancer. The other one that I experienced that I didn't know was like flashes of intense full body itches. And I got that a couple of times. Didn't think anything of it because it was literally brief, like right when I went to bed, like I just had to itch my whole body. But it lasted like 30 seconds. So that would be a thing if you hear those. Now, the metabolic, that second book from Nesha Winters, she mentions in there that one of the things, her experience, if your total cholesterol drops below 165, that's a huge indicator to her. Again, not a doctor, not medical advice. And what's my total cholesterol? Do you remember? Like 150. Yeah, it was my total. My cholesterol is stayed at about 200 for the last 30 years. Even I remember when I was in my 20s, once I was dating a nurse, and she took my blood after I had a gyro. She's like, I could see the clumps of fat in your blood. And my cholesterol still came out 200, which is what doctors I think like to see it at. But that's another one. Like I said, is early detection is one of the best things. So those would be the one is like an unexplained rash.
Like, did the rash go away, or did it?
So the
like,
rash has since gone away. I had the rash at least until March, right? I think it was in the middle of March where it finally went away.
Okay, so it's like a persistent thing.
Yeah. Oh, it was terrible. And part of the reason I know it came out sometime in September is we were going on the friend's boat a lot, so I was wearing shorts all summer. And that's something you'd feel self-conscious of, and I don't remember ever being like embarrassed that I got this rash. So sometime September, October. So I think that's when the cancer started. Sometime after June and September, October. And so that's only a couple months, because January, like I said, I was in bad shape, but it kind of said that the pain kind of subsided. I actually tried to do a CrossFit workout in the middle of January after the freeze, And I was like, I just can't get through it. And I told the coach, I was like, yeah, my chest ain't feeling good. He's like, yeah, you got to get that checked out. And I obviously waited a week and then got it checked out. But, and that's part of what advice I would give. Like I said, is I would research all this. I would you look into at least the ketogenic diet, jumping into long-term fasting. I would instantly start intermittent fasting. But I would actually, especially if you have a weight to lose, the thing about fasting is you can long-term fast, and I'm talking more than 3 days, as long as you have body fat to lose. And that was part of my rules, even before the cancer, was if I got physically hungry. One of the things you're going to realize if you practice fasting is there's a difference between the psychological need to eat and a physical need to eat. So if you get like stomach grumbling, that's a real indication of the physical need to eat. But like the psychological drive is huge. It's huge and it's difficult. But that also kind of goes away after 5 or 6 days. Part of it is, but a lot of it is as with everything, attitude is everything. Like if you're focused and set, you can do it. Like I said, is I'm right now. So we could probably get into some of the things I'm doing. So let me give that recap. So the chemo, again, like I said,
you're on like number 5 right
I'm
now.
on number 5. So what I was told was so what they do is they're going to tell you, and they worst case it. Before I got the type of cancer, he was like, okay, the chemo could be as much as 5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
5 days a week?
5 days a week.
Wow.
When I say that I'm blessed that this is the type of cancer, Hodgkins lymphoma, that I got, because once I got that, it would be 5 days a week. And then it would be, every week or every other week, and it would go up to 6 months. And a lot of they do, the whole philosophy of cancer of chemo is to me repugnant. But that's why it was a huge decision to go ahead and do it. But like I said, is an aggressive form of cancer. So the good news I can say is, so once I got diagnosed, he said, okay, what the chemo you're gonna do is 1 day a week. I have a port. Can you see it? This goes right into my vein, and it gets it. The chemo gets administered. Everything all right?
Sorry about that. I got chickens freaking out in the back.
Oh yeah, that's the part we could say we gave you some of our chickens to watch while we're going through this.
Yeah.
Make sure there's not a fox.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for right now. Usually they don't start freaking out unless there's a predator around. I think we're okay.
Okay. So it's going to be once every 2 weeks for 12 sessions, so 6 months. And they said after 4, they would check the PET scan. So a PET scan. So this goes into what I really found disturbing is my doctor didn't recommend any dietary changes or anything to do. He's just like, this is what you do chemo.
That's the only thing.
We did check all of most of the alternative therapies that I'm doing, and he was for all of them. One thing I do, and these are things that are, decidedly healthy. One of the things I started doing was cold plunging.
Yeah.
Every morning, which is awful, but you get it done. One of the big benefits, and I have a sauna. Now that's not something, that was one of the things I invested in. Excuse me. When COVID started, is I got a home sauna. I got the El Cheapo version it was a shady website, but it came through, and it's like the Costco, the IKEA version of a sauna. So at the time, it was about $2,000. Plus, you have to run 220 volt. But put it together ourselves, and it works. And so I do. I cold plunge in the morning, and I sauna at night. And those are the just. There's no question that those are healthy, and those are things I'll continue going forward, no matter what. The chemo I want to get through as fast as possible. But so yeah, I'm at number 5. At number 4, right before number 5, I got a PET scan, and the results came out. I went from stage 4A to clear.
So clear as in the Hodgkins lymphoma.
There's no. So I had a
no
tumor,
signs of that anymore?
that was about 8 centimeters by 5 centimeters, roughly 3 by 2 inches. I didn't get the third dimension. I think it was 3. I think it was another 3 centimeters. So it was like 3 inches by 2 inch, 3 inches by 2 inches by 1 inch, something like that.
That's pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, and it was wrapped around my aorta, and then I had some cells around my heart, and that's why it was a little confusing. And again, like I said, I haven't spent a lot of time talking to my oncologist. What he said is, well, normally you'd be a stage 2, but because there was some cells around my heart that lit up, that's stage 4. And he's like, the chemo's different, but we're going to treat you as stage 4. Now, what I question, and interestingly enough, I put it out on my YouTube and Instagram. Nobody else questioned. Not as many. When I talk a little more in depth, people do. But now, after 4, I've been declared clear. I haven't been. That's not the right way to put it. But there's no evidence. The PET scan. This is why I find it disturbing that they don't even recommend you changing your diet or avoiding sugar. The PET scan is they actually inject you with radioactive sugar.
Right.
And your kidneys light up, your brain lights up, and then anywhere there's cancer, because you have to. Yeah, they ask you to be, not have anything after 6 o'clock. I was, 40 hours fasted when I got my last PET scan, but I've kind of make it it's a continual part of my regime, because that's also another thing I can.
Because the cancer is going to feed on the sugar, right? And so wherever there would be like a tumor or whatever, that it should be lit up.
Yeah. And so the threshold of it's not going to see microscopic cancer, but the tumor has melted away.
Oh, wow.
What I'm shocked by is that my doctor wants me to complete all 12 sessions. I really thought, hey, they check it at 4, they would adjust that, but he's recommending all 12. And right now, for right now, I have accepted that fact, that I'll be going, I'm going to finish in September. Part of my regime is I do what's called a wraparound fast, which you hear online. Like I said, is the fasting does good. So I actually was 40 hours. So I've also found they give you anti-nausea medication that lasts 5 days after the chemo. So I go in on Tuesdays. It takes most of the day, about half the day. I get there around noon, and I don't get out until 5 or 6 o'clock. So I try to start a fast either Saturday or Sunday, and fast all the way till the day after. And I've done varying things, but that's actually where. And then it turned out, and me and my wife noticed this, that actually day 7 and 8 were the worst after. So I'm basically fasting now every Monday and Tuesday. So I fasted today. I was fasted from Sunday until today, this morning. And that seems to help. So I'll probably, again, I'm meeting up with some friends on Sunday. So I'm not going to start fasting until Sunday, but I got my next treatment. Monday's Memorial Day. My plan is to fast that day, and then I got my next treatment number 6 on Tuesday. What is that, May? But my idea is I would actually try to fast at least until Wednesday, and I might even try to go through to Thursday morning, something like that. But so far, the chemo does suck.
Yeah.
There's, one of the things I've been successful at is trying to get about 12,000 steps a day with my handy Fitbit.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I don't. It actually more weather dependent, because when it's rainy out, I walk in my pasture. Now I was for a while. I was doing a banded workout.
Okay.
I failed on that. I just haven't had the energy to even attempt it. But my big concern is, man, and I wish I could remember the technical terms, cachexic. I don't want to start losing muscle. Now,
Okay.
my regular doctor, my functional medicine practitioner, who I've been seeing every other week or so, he's got an in-body scan, and it's one of these things you stand on, it takes your weight, and then it puts an electrical current through you, and it gives you an entire judge of your body.
Yeah.
And so currently I've pretty much maintained muscle mass. So I am pretty consistent that I've lost the 60 pounds I lost was pretty much all fat.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to maintain that. And that's part of the reason why I stopped the fast. I'm now doing these more short-term fasts. I usually last 2 or 3 days. And now that I've like everything we did, all of these crazy things we did. Now, of course, the problem is we can't prove the negative, right? So the oncologist will tell me it was 100% the chemo. And I don't think that's untrue. I think that the biggest hitter was the chemo. But I do think a lot of these other things I'm doing.
Maybe the fasting is able to
I
help
think the
body
fasting helped.
recover
There
from
was
some
a
of the
lot of
extra
mushroom
food.
supplements I took. I tried to stay in ketosis for the majority of the time. So now I celebrated getting because part of what I didn't get to ask my oncologist was, well, what did you expect? Like, what do you normally see when someone comes into my condition? Like, did you expect to see that the cancer was gone from the PET scan? And that's where I can get into the statistics. Like they're there. They're just not available. I want to know how many, so that goes into, they claim a 90% cure rate. And they get that number in that 9,000 people a year get Hodgkins lymphoma. They get diagnosed with it. And 900 people a year die with it. That's
okay.
So the good news is that that's not giving me any information on what condition the person was.
Yeah, exactly.
When they got it, how long did they live with it, right? And then we get into that whole discussion of dying of or with. I don't know like that. So now the good news is that because of that, the potential is much higher, especially because I'm doing a lot of other alternatives that I think are helping, right? So that's what I would tell anybody. Again, I don't have now I've heard 9 cases, friends of friends, of people who had Hodgkin's lymphoma, did the standard of care and survived. And some of them, they were like 15 when they got it. Now, that is survivor bias, right? I didn't hear about any who got diagnosed with it and died, and there's potential out there. Anecdotal evidence, though, is still evidence. I did actually speak to a coworker. I told him what I was going through, and his wife had it 5 years ago. Now, and this is part of why I've really resolved myself, unless I hear something drastically different. I can talk more about that in a little bit. But his wife had Hodgkin's lymphoma 5 years ago. Now, she went through 12 treatments. I don't know what condition she was. She had multiple tumors, so she had some level of stage 4. She was declared clear after 12, but a year later it came back, and she had to battle it for another 2 years. Now she's been clear for 5 years, which the 5-year survival rate is really that's the standard, that if you're clear for 5 years, they feel a lot more comfortable about it. And that goes into that now what he also told me, though, is she also did the ketogenic diet. And her doctor, not the doctor I used, her doctor at first was like, yeah, that you can do whatever you want, but by the end of it, he was saying, hey, telling his nurses, hey, you should tell everybody to do what she's doing because
Well, I
he
mean,
became a proponent. And that's why I was shocked that my doctor hasn't said one word.
it makes sense, right? I mean, if
It
if
does to me.
cancer uses sugar to replicate and to do its thing and spread, that you should attempt to starve or take away the sugar
It,
to
it
keep it from
it's
feeding the
such a
cancer.
minor thing, and because I've made like I made friends with a guy who was sitting across from me getting chemo, and his doctor's telling him, "Oh no, you need to keep your weight on and eat anything you want." And it's like, does that really seem like good nutrition advice? Because he came to our house, he brought Popeyes chicken. I was like, man, you shouldn't be eating that. And he started eating steak, and he's like, oh man, I feel so much better. Like, yeah, dude. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is probably a big reason why there's such a prevalence is because of a lot of the standard
but the
American
standard
diet.
American diet is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of if you watch the more alternative and Nasha Winters, I think they talk about like they think over 90% of Americans are metabolically broken.
Yeah, I
And
just saw a chart about that where it's like the amount of calories
I
someone
just saw that exact same chart.
on
I did.
Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, it was on Twitter
The
that
amount of
the
calories
amount of
someone
calories has
needs to
stayed
eat.
level for 20 years, but the obesity rates are through the roof.
Yeah, there's no nutrition in the food, so it's
Yeah,
like and it's just like simple sugars, I guess, or something. So that your
I
body's like
I
immediately
would
just
really. Here's my
storing
as an
it.
engineer. I'll put it. So our culture is a system, and what all of the weight loss standard idea. Everyone knows the eat less and move more.
Yeah, yeah.
And uh, man, this is the chemo brain. I had a good point to make. Uh,
Well,
that doesn't work.
it's the quality of the food you're eating. I
It's the
mean,
quality of the food, and yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say. As a system, it's a system problem, and a system problem requires a system solution, and that solution is a better food system. And FDA and the EPA, they ain't giving it to us. Uh,
yeah.
they kept everything open. They kept all the fast food restaurants open, and they shut down all the home cooked meal places. Um, and so that would be another part of the advice is really try to look at your diet.
Well,
And
also, I mean, there's stuff in American food that they don't put in like European
yeah,
stuff or
uh,
whatever. So like you can look at a pack of
well,
Doritos,
I,
I guess, in the
I
US, and then you go
stopped
to
all. So that
Europe and
was
they don't put all that same junk in there.
oh yeah, the Mountain Dew, Diet Mountain Dew, which I drank way too much of. I drank Pepsi One and Diet Mountain Dew, and I tried to get off it. And that was the other thing about getting this diagnosis. Like as soon as I stopped all of that, I've had a little Diet Coke now in the last 2 weeks. But I haven't, I went from drinking a few 20-ounce bottles a day to nothing as soon as I heard this. Seed oils are another one. I was rented. Doritos were my personal poison of choice. I really call it a poison at this point. And my goal right now, so that's where I'm at right now is I'm not going to be as strict because I want to maintain muscle mass. So I'm not doing what we were doing was either a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 fat to protein, and that's grams, not calories. So you're talking like 70 to 90% fat calories, which is really hard to do.
Mm.
A normal keto diet is not even 1-to-1, right? Yeah. And I'll probably be doing that more going forward. I'm going to try to get my protein in, try to get a gram of protein per pound of body weight. Like I said, I'm within 15 to 20 pounds of probably my goal weight, to get to a lean 15%. But I'm not in a rush because, and that would be part of what I would I don't know how much time you have. We've been going a good amount of time. I think we hit a lot of the subjects.
However long you have, Frank.
Yeah.
I usually end them at about 2 hours if they go that long. But
Oh, I don't think I'll make that.
however
That's
much time you want to spend, we
that's
can cut it
that's
off
my.
whenever
We
you like.
might cut it at an hour here. Yeah, I got to sauna tonight,
All
and we
right.
could do a second one. Uh,
Yeah.
I got, and if anyone has questions, but uh, yeah, going forward, I'm really gonna try. I'm hoping to get better energy. That the part of the chemo is
It really
it's
sucks the
cumulative.
energy out of you.
It sucks the energy, and it gets worse. Now I've kind of hit a plateau. I hope, where it's reached a certain level. I'm still at like 60 to 70%. The chemo brain is, as I call it, like I'll be talking. I did that on my own YouTube channel. Like I was like, I'm going to be here in January, and it was like I meant May or April. I just confused words. I told everybody at work, like, please confirm stuff I say because I'm. uh, so it's gone. The last 2 weeks has actually that's been a lot better. Um, we did do for a little bit melatonin. Apparently, high dose melatonin can have huge therapeutic effects. The
Yeah, I was
problem,
seeing some information about that as well. Yeah.
and this was all peeling away the layers of the onion. Each week we found a new thing or a new therapy, and the problem with the melatonin, which I think if you're in really bad shape, you could consider. So I don't know enough about it. Is it drained so much energy from me?
Oh, really?
I was tired all the time, so I've stopped that. Now I'm going to be geared more towards just trying to blunt the side effects of the chemo.
Okay.
Because, like I said, for now, my plan is to complete the full cycle of chemotherapy. So I next week I'll be 50% done, and so that means roughly 3 more months. And then the other good news I've heard is my hair will come back. For people who haven't seen me before, I mean, even a month ago I had a long beard and long hair.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess,
yeah.
I guess it was 2 months ago now. I shaved that. I donated my hair, and I want to grow it back. I know my wife does too.
Yeah,
I
nice.
actually really kind of like the look with the bald and the beard, but I don't like this look.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little too old.
Yeah, you get it. You'll get it back, man.
Yeah, but I'm doing good. Like I said, I'm trying to see. I think I went through most of the things I had. You got any other questions?
Well, I mean, just the fasting seemed to be the common theme here is going through and doing the fast, and
Yeah, and that's the other
seemed
the
to
other
be
place
what
I'd mention
has
is the.
helped you out a lot.
Yeah, without a doubt, and like I said, is going forward. Well, I'm doing at least a 2 to 3 day fast every week at this point. Um, and going forward, I'll probably do a 3 day fast every month, and then I'll do um, uh, a week long, a 5 to 7 day fast every quarter. I'll probably do it with the every season change.
Hey Logan, thanks for hanging out, man. He
Yeah.
says awesome info, Frank. Fasting is amazing. I got to work on that. I need to fast. Best of luck, man. God bless. Glad to hear all the
Thanks,
good
man.
news.
Yeah, like I said, really read the obesity code or the diabetes code. Jason Fung is an interesting guy. I really give him a shout out if anyone ever actually sees this. Uh, he was a diabetes doctor who for years was like, yeah, this our protocols are not working, and he discovered to help repair the um, human metabolic process of fasting, and then he went into that, and that's why he has the cancer code and the obesity code. And that's the last thing I want to say for tonight. Like I said, is if you want to do another one, got some more things we can talk about, and I can give you an update. We can
Yeah,
maybe do that in a
absolutely.
couple of months. Um, is
Absolutely. So tell people you've been documenting this and sharing as you
Oh yeah,
go on
man,
your
I gotta.
updates and
I'll put that
everything.
in the chat. My YouTube channel. I got to look it up though.
Yeah, it's just I'll make sure to add it in the video description. It's just Frank Hark on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's actually Frank 7774, but I got to check. Yeah, it's at Frank 7774.
Okay. Let me see.
See, how do I share it?
Yeah, I got you right here. It should be up. Just a second. I'll make sure to pull it up here. Let's go here, and let's pull you up here. I got your channel right here, and I'll make sure to have that in
Yeah.
the video
Yeah, that's
description
me.
as well.
Yeah, that was me right after the St. Baldrick's event.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. That would be the last thing I'd say. Part of that we all have been taught for 20 years. Calories in versus calories out. You reduce the calorie intake and you move a little more to burn a little calories. The part of that ignores, and Jason Fung goes into this in detail in his books, is that your resting metabolic rate, which is where you burn the majority of your calories. Just consider. So there's an equation, and those equations are very accurate. Of you put in your weight and your height and everything in your musculature, and like I said, is when I was fully fasting, so I knew exactly I wasn't taking in any calories. I could see from my weight loss, because a calorie of fat has, I think, 3,500 calories of fat is a pound. I could see from my weight loss that was accurate. Is that what happens? Your body has a set weight, this concept. And so this is always what happens, is why all these diets fail 99 to 98% of the time. They fail is you reduce your calorie intake for a while and your body goes into a starvation mode, and then it ups your hunger hormone, ghrelin and leptin and all of these things. I don't know I can't quote the complicated hormone there, but when you go into a long-term fast, your body actually starts burning its fat and it changes your set weight. So like, while I've been doing these 2 or 3 days fasts and cheating a little bit, my weight at the beginning of this month was 228 and it was 230 this morning. And so, and he goes into it. I think they've done some of these experiments with prisoners in jails. Unfortunately, but they all agreed to it. They fed them as much as they want or as little, and like their weight didn't change. And it's really that part of it is that your basal metabolic rate actually adjusts based on your level of activity and how much. And that's the part they don't consider is that your body has mechanisms because it doesn't want to lose weight. That's actually the last thing, because he makes this point in his books. Is it's called the thrifty gene theory. Well, the whole reason that we accumulate fat is because, well, your body doesn't want to lose weight and it wants to save up energy for lean times.
yeah,
But he makes an excellent point. That's the theory, but the reason that doesn't work is because especially when you become grossly obese, like you are not an efficient hunter, right? Like
yeah.
you want to be. Just think about the way your body, when it's functioning properly, like how much more energy you have when you're in shape. I know we've both been going through this journey of pretty good weight loss, and how much better you feel. So that thrifty gene, like, there's no advantages to being grossly obese. I guess it's that might be controversial to some people, but
Well, I guess like so we live in the modern times where we're not having to hike a long way to go get our food or whatever. Everything's so convenient for us, and our bodies really aren't adapted for this modern age. It's more
yeah.
adapted
Well,
for
I think it's
struggling to make it on the land in the earth.
yeah. Well, that's actually a really interesting concept, and I'll end it there, since I got my bedtime routine
All right.
to finish. Is we have nerfed the world, right? So even when I grew up, the schools in New York didn't have air conditioning.
Oh wow.
So, you walk to school in the cold, and then in the summers you sweated a lot. And we grew up, we didn't have central air. We had one room that air conditioning. So I'd sleep on my parents' floor when it was really hot. Um, Now, like, you go from your house and it's, usually a pretty monitored environment, to your car, and then your office. And we don't, but so now I try to reenact that by cold plunging or going to sauna, so that I get these heat shock and cold shock proteins. But the average person doesn't, and it's very easy to see. Oh, it's like, oh, you burn more calories to keep your body warm. Well, you also burn more calories to keep your body cool, right? Just like an air conditioning uh, burns energy.
Yeah.
And so there's so many things have changed. It's, they always try to, like, link it to one thing. Oh, it's the food quality. No, it's multivariate. It's that, people are more sedentary, right? They're not getting the same level of exercise. They don't even walk, right? Like, even parking lots are
Yeah, just
the
like you
designs.
said, I mean, you don't have to go very far from your car to get
Yeah,
to work
and,
to
and
get
then
back
you
home.
crank the air conditioning, and it was not a thing that old cars had standard air conditioning. That's part of that's why the South is exploding in population, because it's so much more comfortable. But there's a downside to it anyway, as well. But anyway, that's it.
All right.
I'll leave it
Well,
there. I'm pretty beat.
all right, Frank. Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight. We'll make sure that you got all your links in the thing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your
Absolutely, man. It was
story.
a
And
pleasure.
hopefully, this can help some folks out there that might be going through something similar. And
They can
appreciate your
always
time.
reach out to me, on the YouTube. I think I have an Instagram too. Well, I know I have an Instagram. I don't know what it is, but probably, if you looked up Frank Hark, you'd find this ugly mug. So,
All right. I'll make sure
very
that
good.
I get that in the video description. And
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good, man. Be good.
all right. You too, Frank. You have a good night.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right, guys. We'll catch you for another episode next week. And if you guys got something out of this, if you'd share that around. If you liked the episode, leave a like and comment. And if you found anything of note in there and of value, and appreciate you guys. And we'll see you next week.